How should South Africa and South Africa business position itself with regard to the rest of Africa?
I think we've got an amazing opportunity, Tony, to take the leadership role in expanding into Africa. And if I can just quickly give the context to that, at the moment, intra-Africa trade is at 17%. You compare that to a Europe who's sitting at 70%. It just simply tells us that there's enormous opportunity. What it means for us from a South African perspective is a couple of things. We have to absolutely gear ourselves to be more of an export market than what we are currently, an imports market. We're a far more sophisticated market as it is. In other words, meaning we have the capacity, the capability and the skill to manufacture and to export. It's about taking that leap of faith into the continent and to start expanding into the continent. Because if we don't do, trust me, others will.
Whilst agreeing with you, there's a slight apprehension on my behalf, but saying, do we know that other market we're going into before we go there? Have we researched it properly? Do we want to understand it, or are we going in arrogantly, we in South Africa are better? Because many African countries talk about South African arrogance.
Absolutely, Tony, and it's a brilliant point. I would answer it as such that in terms of certainly just if we look at SADC, I think the consumer behavior is very similar. I think the consumer want and need is very similar. I do think that as you start going a little further east and a little further west, there are certainly differences. And you're quite correct. The way in which we approach the market will be what makes a difference. If we approach it in an arrogant fashion, we'll get a bloody nose. There's absolutely no doubt. But if we go there to expand and to improve Africa as a whole and to take that leadership position and multiply it across the continent, then I think we have a wonderful opportunity to be successful at it.
A light-hearted part to a very serious question here. I think, my father once said, all's fair in love, war on the tax man. And you were expounding very heavily on the success of SARS and the modernisation program that's going as a showcase of success. Why do you go to say that? I mean, what makes you say that? What makes you say it's such a success?
If I look, I've been in this industry for 14 years, and if I look at how they've behaved 10 years ago, if I look at how we struggled to get through all of the different hoops and getting goods cleared, for example, getting importations done, getting exports done, versus how it's happening now. It's all EDI, it's all modified, it's all very electronic. But most importantly for me, Tony, is the absolute mindset change. The willingness to help, the absolute preparedness to sit down, listen to the problem, and immediately call in a project team and say, we've got a customer here, this is what the issue is, how can we help him? That was absolutely phenomenal. But it goes to show that it's absolutely possible. If you look at where SARS was, to reiterate the point 10 years ago, to how they've renewed themselves, revitalized themselves, and have now positioned them where they are now a trade enabler, wanting to make a difference, wanting to make things work. And if we can follow that model and if we can multiply it throughout the economy and the different sectors of the economy, South Africa will have an amazing future.
How can we tolerate 9.5% of the population of South Africa paying taxes for the balance to live with?
I think it goes back to
It's too small, isn't it?
It is too small, and it goes back to the challenge. And I think, in my opinion, the challenge is for the SME market to aggressively expand and to aggressively expand into Africa. Africa is where the market lies right now. We are in Africa. We are Africa. The opportunity is ours for the taking.
Logistics. Obviously, you deal in a logistical field there. How can African institutions change their mindsets as the gatekeepers to trade facilitators, for instance? I mean, how does your company look at it?
For us it presents an opportunity, and the opportunity is because of the footprint, because of the network, we are able to deliver that. But the other part of the opportunity sits to engage with some of the government institutions across Africa and to share our international expertise. We're the world's most global company. We're in more than 220 countries, which essentially means we've got the expertise, and we are more than happy to engage and share that expertise to help make things better so that they can, in fact, turn into trade enablers.
When you say you're happy to share it, how do you share it?
Well, it's there has to be a forum where you can give input in terms of what we've seen around the world works well, from a process perspective, from an approach perspective, and from an EDI perspective. It is up to them then what they do with that input. But I think it's like most things in life. All you need is an opportunity and a platform to share the expertise and some of the ideas. And also then goes a long way that there's a bridge and a connection between private enterprise and business and government.
Yes, that's the very point I was coming to there. There has to be that bridge, doesn't there?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that bridge exists today, or do you think it's rather a one-way traffic and not being accepted on the other side of the bridge?
I think in terms of South Africa, I think there are a number of platforms where we are contributing at the moment. And certainly as I've traveled the continent over the last 20 years, I'm seeing more and more of those platforms being created. I'm seeing more and more the voice of business being heard and being asked for input. So it's absolutely on the rise, Tony, no doubt.
We've talked about, and this is my final question to you, about leadership. If we were to lose our leadership role in South Africa, what would be your scenario?
I think the immediate fear is, Tony, that we will immediately see more volatility in the currency. I think we may see a net outflow of funds, and a net outflow of funds right now would be detrimental to the country. And I think that'll also then see us losing more jobs in the country. So it's not something I believe we can afford at this point.
I'm going to bring that crystal ball into play. What's your prediction?
I do think that we will get through this. South Africa has shown amazing resilience over the last 10 or 14 years since democracy. I do believe we will get through it with grit and determination like we have done in the past.
Nervous about the forthcoming elections?
Not nervous, Tony, no. I think as Justice Malala said earlier on, there's a lot of noise, and that's the way it should be in a democracy. I think the outcome is going to be a positive one. We've now got a reasonable, good track record in terms of that, and it should be business as usual after the 7th of May.